Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV, watching Question Hour, a flagship show where we get you the questions asked by members in the upper house from various ministries and departments and replies given by the ministers. I'm your host Rajat Kain. I'm joined with my colleague Kriti Mishra.
Thank you so much, Rajat. And in this edition also, we've collated and filtered all the important unstarred questions for our viewers.
Well, Question Hour is a very important, or to say the vital part of parliamentary proceedings where government gets to give the entire details about the programs and policies which they're doing for public work, and members get to ask questions arising out of the constituencies. Broadly speaking, there are three categories of questions: starred, unstarred and the short notice one. Well, starred is the one where answers are given directly on the floor of the House.
Whereas unstarred questions are those questions of which replies are given by the respective departments and ministries in written format. And in our Question Hour show, we bring all the important unstarred questions asked by the members of the upper house in the previous sessions of the Rajya Sabha. So Rajat, let's begin the show.
Well, the first question of this edition of the show that was asked by member Ajay Pratap Singh from Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. The member asked about whether the prescribed number of cards have been distributed to the eligible beneficiaries under Government of India's Ayushman Bharat scheme having been implemented in Madhya Pradesh. Secondly, what are the number of persons to whom these cards have not been distributed and reasons for non-distribution?
For responding to this query asked by member Ajay Pratap, the government says that services at Ayushman Bharat health and wellness centers are free and universal to all individuals residing in the service area. Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana is an essential entitlement-based scheme for providing health cover up to 5 lakh rupees per family per annum to around 10.74 crore poor and vulnerable families. No registration or enrollment or entitlement of beneficiaries is required for availing the benefits under Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. However, in order to create awareness and facilitate ease availing of benefits, paper-based e-cards are being issued to the beneficiaries after verifying their identity. The identification of beneficiaries is a continuous process, and the responsibility of issuing Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana e-cards lies with the respective state governments and UT administrations. And talking specifically about the state of Madhya Pradesh, the government says that in Madhya Pradesh, around 83.92 lakh beneficiary families are entitled to get the benefits under Ayushman Bharat Yojana, and also as on 2nd of March 2020, 1 crore 40 lakh 63,887 individual beneficiaries have been verified under the scheme, and the state has been advised to issue e-cards to all eligible beneficiaries in a mission mode in the state of Madhya Pradesh and in the country as well. And joining us on the Question Hour show is Rajya Sabha MP Mr. Ajay Pratap Singh. Sir, welcome to Rajya Sabha TV and thank you so much for joining us.
धन्यवाद
सर, जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि इस प्रोग्राम में हम सारे जो महत्वपूर्ण अतारांकित प्रश्न होते हैं जो राज्यसभा के सदस्य सरकार से पूछते हैं उनको सामने लाते हैं। और अगर मैं पिछले सत्र की बात करूं तो आपने आयुष्मान भारत स्कीम के बारे में सरकार से सवाल किया है। मध्य प्रदेश में इसका किस तरह से इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हो रहा है, इस पर भी सवाल किया है। बेहद ही महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा।
आयुष्मान भारत मोदी सरकार की अत्यंत ही महत्वपूर्ण और महत्वाकांक्षी योजना है। इस योजना के माध्यम से विशेष रूप से गरीब वर्ग को संरक्षण मिला है। गरीब वर्ग को जब गंभीर किस्म की बीमारी होती थी तो पहले उसके पास कोई हेल्थ कवर नहीं था, उस बीमारी का इलाज नहीं हो पाता था और गरीब परिवार के सदस्य उन बड़ी बीमारियों के कारण असमय ही काल कवलित हो जाते थे। आयुष्मान भारत के माध्यम से अब गरीब परिवार के सभी लोग आश्वस्त है, निश्चित है कि अगर ऐसी कोई आपदा उनके पर आएगी तो माननीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने आयुष्मान भारत की योजना के माध्यम से उनको सौगात दी है। उस माध्यम से उनका भी इलाज हो जाएगा और असमय उनके साथियों की, उनके परिवार के सदस्यों की जो मृत्यु हुआ करती थी उस मृत्यु को टाला जा सकता है। इसलिए ग्रामीण भारत, गरीब परिवारों में और शहरी क्षेत्र में भी जो गरीब लोग रहते हैं उन पर इस योजना का बहुत बड़े पैमाने पर असर है।
सर, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के लिहाज से आप कितना इसको सक्सेसफुल मानते हैं, क्योंकि सरकार बता रही है कि मध्य प्रदेश में ही तकरीबन 80 लाख से ज़्यादा जो बेनिफिशरी हैं वो आइडेंटिफाई कर लिए गए हैं।
दुर्भाग्य से जब यह योजना लागू हुई थी, उसके तुरंत बाद मध्य प्रदेश में कमलनाथ सरकार शासनारूढ़ हो गई। कमलनाथ सरकार ने इस योजना को राजनीतिक चश्मे के साथ लागू किया। तो वस्तुतः इसको सही मायने में लागू ही नहीं किया। उनको ये लगता था कि ये योजना जितना विस्तारित होगी, जितना गरीबों तक पहुंचेगी, तो इस योजना का लाभ भारतीय जनता पार्टी को मिलेगा, मोदी सरकार को मिलेगा और प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी की और भी आम जनता में पैठ बढ़ेगी। तो इस राजनीतिक दृष्टिकोण की वजह से कमलनाथ सरकार ने इस योजना को ठीक तरीके से मध्य प्रदेश में लागू नहीं किया था। इस तरफ की सरकार का ध्यान आकर्षित करने के लिए मैंने यह प्रश्न लगाया था, लेकिन अब मध्य प्रदेश की परिस्थितियां बदल चुकी हैं। अब मध्य प्रदेश में शिवराज सरकार शासनारूढ़ है और मुझे विश्वास है कि शिवराज जी हमेशा गरीबों के लिए अच्छा काम करते हैं, गरीबों की मदद करते हैं। इस तरीके की अन्य योजनाएं पहले भी मध्य प्रदेश में वो संचालित करते रहे हैं। यह योजना उनको भी ताकत देगी, उनको भी राहत देगी और गरीबों की मदद करेगी। इस योजना को अब बहुत अच्छी तरीके से मध्य प्रदेश में लागू किया जा रहा है और इसका विस्तार किया जा रहा है।
कोई सुझाव जो आप सरकार को देना चाहें?
इस योजना के तहत जो गरीबों का चयन है या इस योजना का जो विस्तार है, वो जो सामाजिक आर्थिक सर्वे था उसके आधार पर चयन किया गया था और सभी लोगों को योजना लागू है। लेकिन फिर भी गरीबों को आश्वस्त करने के लिए उनको कोई न कोई कार्ड वितरित करना चाहिए। सरकार ने जो ई कार्ड की व्यवस्था बनाई है, अभी वो उसका प्रॉपरली डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नहीं हुआ है, इसलिए बहुत सारे लोग इस बात से अनभिज्ञ रहते हैं कि हमको भी इस योजना का लाभ मिल सकता है। अगर कार्ड उनके हाथ में होगा तो उनको स्पष्टता रहेगी कि इस योजना से हम लाभ ले सकते हैं। और दूसरा, आयुष्मान भारत योजना जो है, जो स्वास्थ्य क्षेत्र से जुड़ी हुई है, स्वास्थ्य का सीधा संबंध स्वच्छता से है, तो स्वच्छ भारत के साथ भी इसको जोड़ना चाहिए। और जितना हम स्वच्छता में स्थान अपना हासिल करेंगे, जितना स्वच्छता देश में बढ़ेगी, क्षेत्र में बढ़ेगी, उतना ही प्रभावी ढंग से हम आयुष्मान भारत को लागू कर पाएंगे और गरीबों को इसका लाभ दिला पाएंगे।
जी अजय प्रताप जी, आप हमसे जुड़े वर्चुअल प्लेटफॉर्म के माध्यम से, आपने हमसे ये सारी बातें की। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद राज्यसभा टीवी से जुड़ने के लिए।
जी धन्यवाद।
And let's move on to the next question asked by member Ravi Prakash Sharma, and this question pertains to the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. And the member has inquired whether Agri Market Infrastructure Fund that was announced in Budget 2018 for developing and upgrading agriculture marketing infrastructure in 22,000 Grameen agricultural markets and 585 agricultural produce market committees, and also the details thereof along with the details of agricultural marketing infrastructure and APMCs upgraded and developed, and also about the fund allocated.
By giving a reply in affirmative, the ministry said that in the budget announcement of 2018-19, the Government of India has announced to develop and upgrade existing 22,000 rural hearts in Grameen agriculture markets. In these Grameen agriculture markets, physical infrastructure will be strengthened using Manrega and other government schemes. And further, the government has announced to set up agri-market infrastructure funds with corpus of rupees 2,000 crore for developing and upgrading agriculture marketing infrastructure in 22,000 Grameen agriculture banks and 585 agriculture produce market committee or the APMCs. The Ministry of Rural Development has been developing and upgrading physical infrastructure of rural hearts under control of Panchayat through states and union territories. Through a Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme for development of GRAMs, that is Grameen Agriculture Markets. Now, state-wise details of village hearts taken up by Manrega is given in the annexures to reply. Further, in pursuant to budget announcement, the government has approved Agri-Market Infrastructure Fund with corpus of rupees 2,000 with National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development for developing and upgrading agriculture marketing infrastructure in grams and APMCs, and circulated the scheme's guidelines to states and union territories. Since it's demand-driven scheme from the states and union territories, there is no state-wise and year-wise allocation of funds. And lastly, the Government of India has already requested state and union territories for submission of proposals for seeking assistance under Agri-Market Infrastructure Fund.
So time for a short break, but lots more on the other side.
The duration of home quarantine period is 14 days. During this period, a home quarantine person should stay in a well-ventilated single room, preferably with a separate toilet. The person must maintain a distance of at least 1 meter from other family members. The person needs to stay away from elderly people, pregnant women and children. Must have restricted movement within the house and must not attend any social or religious gathering under any circumstances. A home quarantine person should wash hands often, thoroughly with soap and water or with alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Avoid sharing household items, for example, dishes, drinking glasses, cups, eating utensils, towels, bedding or other items. Wear a surgical disposable mask at all times. However, if symptoms like cough, fever, difficulty in breathing appear, the person should immediately inform the nearest healthcare center or call 011-239-78046. Family members of the home quarantined person should avoid shaking the soiled linen or direct contact with skin. Use disposable gloves while cleaning the surfaces or handling soiled linen. Wash hands after removing gloves. Must not allow visitors to meet the person in quarantine. In case the person being quarantined becomes symptomatic, all his close contacts will be home quarantined for 14 days or till the report of such case turns out negative. The environment around the home quarantine person must be regularly sanitized as well. This means cleaning and disinfecting frequently touched surfaces in the quarantine person's room. Cleaning and disinfecting toilet surfaces daily. Cleaning clothes and other linen used by the person separately.
Welcome back. You're watching the Question Hour show on Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, moving on to next question that was asked by member Pratap Singh from Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and member asked whether the ministry has surveyed economic impact of India's bilateral free trade agreements or the FTAs with Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Thailand, Singapore, Japan, Bhutan, Nepal, Republic of Korea and Malaysia, and whether there has been any review done on these agreements so far.
And responding to this query, the government says that an internal assessment of India's bilateral free trade agreements or preferential trade agreements with Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Thailand, Singapore, Japan, Bhutan, Nepal, Republic of Korea and Malaysia reveals that the cumulative average growth rate, which is CAGR, in trade with these partners over the last 5 financial years was 7.1%. While there has been a growth in both imports and exports to these FTA partners, the utilization rate of FTAs both for India and its partners, that has been moderate. The economic impact assessment of FTAs is a continuous process which is undertaken both in terms of data analysis and stakeholder consultations. An analysis of preferential import data for some of these agreements indicate that FTA utilization rates have been moderate to high in case of some sectors like iron and steel for India-Korea Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement and India-Japan CEPA, plastics in the case of India-Singapore Comprehensive Economic Agreement and automotives in case of India-Malaysia CECA. The review of trade agreements is undertaken on the basis of mutual consent of the trading partners and demand from domestic stakeholders. 2 reviews of the India-Singapore CECA have been completed. The India-Bhutan Agreement on Trade, Commerce and Transit was renewed in 2016, while the India-Nepal Treaty of Trade was extended in 2016. 8 rounds of negotiations have been completed for the review of India-Korea CEPA, which commenced in the year 2016. Moreover, India has taken up the review of Japan CEPA and India-ASEAN FTA with its trading partner. Let's move on to the next question asked by member Rajkumar Dhoot, and this question pertains to the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And the member has asked whether the ministry has examined revamping of Special Economic Zone Policy or the SEZ policy to meet the global challenges faced by Indian exporters. The details thereof.
Now, moving on with the reply to this query, the ministry said the recommendations of the group, which has already been acted upon, are as following. Review specific exclusion proposed in NFE computation in the light of Make in India initiative, especially projects of economic importance. The recommendations sought that status quo prior to 19th of September 2018 should be retained. Accordingly, the same was implemented through suitable amendments to SEZ rules in March 2019. Now, sharing of duty exempted assets, infrastructure between units to be allowed against specific approval. The recommendation was implemented through suitable clarification issued on 11th of June 2019 for allowing use of common infrastructure like canteen, data centers among SEZ units against specific approvals. Now, inclusion of indigenous goods in NFE computation should be excluded as there is no foreign exchange outflow on procurement of indigenous goods, and same is contrary to objective of NFE and policies followed for EOUs. The same was implemented through suitable amendments to the SEZ rules in March 2019. Formalized denotification process for enclaves and dealing its present mandatory usage for SEZ purpose only. This recommendation was implemented through suitable clarification dated 28th of January 2019, issued to all DCs with copies to states and union territories, which relaxed the mandatory usage requirement that stipulated that denotified land shall be used for SEZ purpose only. Now, support to enable servicification of manufacturing zones, allowing manufacturing enabling services companies that includes R&D services, engineering design services, logistical services. These recommendations has been implemented through a suitable amendments to Rule 5 of the SEZ rules on the 17th of December 2019, which rendered all existing and future SEZ as multi-sector SEZs, thereby allowing for the coexistence of SEZ units of any sector with any other sector. Now, broadbanding definition of services, allowing multiple services to come together. This recommendation has been implemented through suitable amendments to Rule 5 of the SEZ rule on the 17th of December 2019, which rendered all existing future SEZ as multi-sector SEZ, thereby allowing for the coexistence of SEZ of any other sector with any other sector. Relax review or relax minimum and land build-up area requirement. Now, this recommendation was implemented through suitable amendment to Rule 5 of the SEZ rules on 17th of Feb 2019, which relaxed minimum land area requirement for setting up multi-sector SEZ for erstwhile requirement of 500 hectares to 50 hectares. And lastly, developers should be allowed flexibility to enter into long-term lease agreements with stakeholders in zones and lines with the state policies. This recommendation was implemented through an instruction number 98 dated 29th of August 2019, which relaxed the earlier stipulation of maximum lease period of 30 years to allow flexibility in lease tenure, which would be in line with maximum tenure allowed under the state, local government laws and regulations. So, quite a detailed response to this query. Well, moving on to the next question that was asked by member Jose K. Money from Ministry of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying. The member asked whether shortage of green fodder, dry fodder and concentrated feed has been reported to the government, and whether crossbreed cows have higher daily milk yield than indigenous cows, and also whether any studies on better formulated feeds have been conducted to increase productivity of indigenous cows, and whether the government has attempted to spread awareness about nutritional requirements of the dairy cattle.
While giving a detailed reply to this question, the government says that Indian Grassland and Fodder Research Institute Jhansi, under the aegis of Indian Council of Agricultural Research, on various occasions published documents or estimates regarding shortages of green, dry, fodder and concentrated feed in the country. A few are IGFRI Vision 2020, Vision 2050, All India Coordinated Research Project on forage costs, and also the same are available on the Institute's website. Normally, the crossbreed animals yield higher milk per day than the indigenous cows. A study was conducted by National Dairy Development Board and Anand, Gujarat on Kankre's breed of indigenous cattle to evaluate the effect of scientifically formulated feeds on the growth rate of calves, age at sexual maturity and age at first calving. Scientific feeding resulted in about 40% higher growth rate as compared to the traditional feeding. Age at sexual maturity was 17 months in animals given scientifically formulated feed as compared to 24 months with traditional feeding. Age at first calving was 28 months in scientifically fed calves as against 47 months under traditional feeding. Government of India has also implemented World Bank externally aided project, which is National Dairy Plan Phase 1 from 2011-2012 to 2018-19 in 18 major milk producing states. Under this program, 21.57 lakh farmers were educated about the nutritional needs of cows and buffaloes, and balanced ration advisories were offered to them through 31,148 local resource persons covering 33,374 villages in these 18 states. The government further says that Indian Council of Agricultural Research Institute through Mera Gaon Mera Gaurav program, All India Coordinated Research Projects, Farmers First Project and SCSP scheme, the dairy farmers have been imparted training on ration balancing program based on nutrients requirements on a regular basis. Farmers have been provided with the user-friendly feed chart developed by the ICAR institutes for feeding the dairy cows as per their nutrients requirement. Awareness about the nutritional requirements of dairy cows were also made through periodic trainings of various stakeholders such as dairy farmers, dairy cooperatives, state animal husbandry departments and extension officers and KVK officials as well. And moving on to the last question of this edition of the Question Hour show, asked by member Kanta Kardam, and this question pertains to the Ministry of Panchayati Raj. And the member has asked whether the central government provides assistance to state governments for the training of elected representatives and workers of Panchayati Raj institutions, and also the state-wise details, and also whether government has made any study to gauge the impact of such programs on the working of elected representatives in Panchayati Raj.
Well, giving a detailed response to this query, the ministry said that under the restructured centrally sponsored scheme of Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan being implemented from the year 2018-19, the ministry has been providing financial support to states and union territories for various activities relating to strengthening of panchayats, including capacity building and training of elected representatives, panchayat functionaries and other stakeholders of panchayat. Now, prior to RGSA or the Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan, the ministry under erstwhile schemes of Rajiv Gandhi Panchayat Sashaktikaran Abhiyan implemented during 2012 and 13 to 2015-16, the capacity building Panchayat Sashaktikaran Abhiyan implemented during 2016-17 and 17-18 had provided funds for CB&T and ERs and PFs and other stakeholders of Panchayat. Now, state and union territory-wise details of funds released, including that for CB&T and ERs and PFs and other stakeholders trained during last 5 years under these schemes, are provided in the annexures to the reply. Well, continuing with the detailed response, the ministry said the schemes provides flexibility to states and union territories for conduct of trainings of ERs, PFs and other stakeholders to state-designed institutions like State Institute of Rural Development, Panchayat Raj training institutions and other training operating below state levels like extension training centers, district panchayat resource centers, regional institutions of rural development and district institutes of rural development as decided by respective states and union territories. Now, besides the ERs and PFs and other stakeholders of panchayat also get training from other training institutions, centers of other line departments and respective areas. In Uttar Pradesh, the training institutions operating for training of ERs, PFs and other stakeholders of panchayats are SIRD, PRIT at state level and DPRCs, RIRDs and DIRDs at district levels. Further, the government said the ministry has sanctioned a study to Messrs Centre of Development Communication and Studies, Jaipur, Rajasthan during the year 2018-19 for impact assessment of training of PRIs in 18 states, namely Arunachal Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Goa, Gujarat, Haryana, Himachal, Jharkhand, Karnataka, Kerala, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Odisha, Rajasthan, Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal. Well, thanks for watching Question Hour Rajya Sabha TV, and you can also follow all our programs on the online platform of YouTube as well. Thank you and goodbye.